Okay, so we're holding. We're going to do today. We're going to do today. Daf Gimel Amud Beis. Pesachim Daf Gimel Amud Beis. We're finishing off speaking about the sugya. Last we finished off speaking about the sugya. What is Laba'asa? We came to Maskana that means night, and today we asked if means night, why does the Tana of the Mishnah use the terminology of and not Laila? So the Gemara said that the Tana wanted to use a clean terminology, more of a positive terminology, as means the forthcoming day, the rising of the day, as opposed to Laila, which is Laila means objectively dark, night, bad terminology, a negative terminology, and that's why we didn't use it. So we're going through, we brought down different sources, how we see how the Torah was very makbid to use, the Torah was makbid to use a positive terminology. So we're holding Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, the last line, Daf Gimel Aleph V'Haksiv. So we said yesterday, one of the examples of using a positive terminology or clean terminology is that when it comes to the tomb of a man, whenever the Torah speaks about a man riding, we say Reichev or Merkov. When it speaks about a woman, it doesn't say woman is riding, it says woman is sitting. Why? Because by a woman, it's not sneeze since the legs are open. So if she rides, it's not sneeze. Therefore, she sits an animal. Says the Gemara, it says a clear pasuk in Shmais that Moshe Rabbeinu took it. This is all after the Moshe Rabbeinu left Yisro's house. He took his wife and his sons. Vayakivim means he set them riding ala chamer. So we see clearly that the Torah does use a terminology of riding by a woman also. Everything about it, Hasam, don't bring a proof from over there because Hasam, because since it says we're speaking about he put his sons also on the donkey. So the Torah is speaking about the general term of who was riding the donkey was his sons, since they were plural, banav. So it doesn't the Torah doesn't go to change the terminology because there was one woman, one lady on the animal. Even though the lady was on the animal and Mustamish is riding properly, the Torah uses the lashon Vayakivim, even though because on the animal there were also boys. Another example of Aksiv, it says in pasuk Vahi Recheves Alachem. It says in pasuk that Abigail, it says in Shmuel, whenever Abigail came to beg by David HaMelech not to kill her husband Novel was a murder Malchus, and she came to David to beg him not to kill him. So it says she was riding on a donkey. So again we see that the Torah uses the lashon Recheves even by women. Everything about a husband over there, we shouldn't be sus the line or because over there, number one, there's three answers. The first answer is that over there was night. Since it was night, so since night means you can't see where you're going, so therefore, then Abigail rode the donkey, even though by day or regularly ladies don't. By day, it's not sneeze to ride a donkey or ride a animal properly by woman. But over here, since it was night, she didn't want to fall off the donkey or didn't want to. It was easy to ride, so she rode the way we usually ride a donkey, which is the way men ride a donkey. So that's why answer number one why it says Reicha. Another answer is we by saying another answer is Mishum Bisusa the Laila Leka and Chanam, she wasn't scared of the night. Mishum Bisusa the David because she was scared of David, she's gonna come see the king himself. So the fear of meeting the king she wanted to stay stable on the horse or the donkey, so she rode it properly. But same, a third answer, Mishum Bisusa David Amaleka, she wasn't scared of David either. That wasn't the reason. The had because she was riding on a mountain. Since she was riding on a mountain, so it's very hard to ride a donkey on a mountain if you're sitting. So therefore, she rode it riding. Okay, now we're going back to the discussion of what we spoke about yesterday. We said the Torah doesn't use the lashon tummy. The Torah doesn't use the lashon of impure. When the Torah wants to use the lashon of impure, the Torah says asher lo Torah, someone who is not pure. But the Torah doesn't say objectively or the lashon of tummy. Says the Gemara Midraisa over Raisa mean like Tummy. It doesn't say Tummy in the Torah. If you open up a book, it says a whole bunch of times Tummy in the Torah. So what's the whole deal? Because the Gemara said, but one pasuk that told us Asher lo Torah. But we see how much of times the Torah uses lashon Tummy. Says the Gemara Ella kol hecha de chiyadad yinu enechanat. Whenever if kol hecha de chiyadad yinu mishpar b'lashon nekia. Confusion, meaning any time that in general, when the Torah speaks about something which is tummy, something which is tar, if using the word tummy is going to be if using the word if using the word tummy is going to be less words than using the word asher lo Torah, so Torah uses lashon tummy. Meaning Torah doesn't always use the lashon of asher lo Torah. A lot of times Torah does say tummy, but we see that if they're equal, meaning if there's a lashon akia, you have two options: either to use a lashon akia, which is one amount of letters in a word, or use a negative term. And if it's the same amount of letters, Torah would always use the lashon, the clean terminology. We said yesterday in Gemara. In Gemara, we said Asher lo Torah. We said that Torah added 16 letters, and some opinions said it was 10 letters. So that was the Eretz Makal. That was actually says that was just to teach us the general concept that to use a clean term. But now we're asking, the question is, if so, why does Torah use? We see a lot of time Torah says tummy. So Torah says so. The Gemara answers, Torah does use the word tummy. If it's equal to another word, Torah will use Torah will prefer a clean terminology over a impure terminology. Because why does Torah even if it's not pure use a shorter term as opposed to using a longer term which is more pure? Because but if you know in the name of Yehuda Rav Huna, the name of Rav, some people say it was the name of Rav Huna, who said in the name of Rav and said in the name of Rabbi. A person should always teach his student in a short term. A person should be ma'ich. We see Torah was very makbid on saying things very precise and very short. And that's what Rabbi based his Mishnayos on. Rabbi based Mishnayos on very short, but that's why we have the Gemara to come in and figure it out. Back to the question, it says still. You're telling me every time in Torah that if you have a word, which is a certain amount of letters, which is a positive term, and you have a word which is the same amount of letters which is a negative term, Torah always uses the positive term. But we just said now that we brought a pasuk that said that Avigail was riding on a donkey, and instead of recheves, the pasuk could have just said yesheves. Recheves and yesheves are the same amount of letters. The question is why the Gemara. We just had a piece of Gemara which told us why it specifically said the recheves. I don't understand exactly what's the question of the Gemara, and we just answered why it says recheves a few lines ago. But we'll come back to a different time. For now, the question is that it says recheves instead of yesheves. Recheves and yesheves are the same term, are the same amount of letters. And when you're speaking about a lady, you should say yesheves instead of recheves. So you just told me that whenever Torah has the same amount of letters, we always use the positive term. We see over here Torah use not such a clean term, even though it has the same amount of letters. Says the Gemara, it doesn't say in Torah recheves with a vav. Recheves can be either spelled mali, meaning you can spell it reish vav chaf beis saf, or you can spell it reish chaf beis saf without the vav. And then our pasuk it says recheves. So we see over here that recheves is shorter than yesheves. Yesheves has a vav, so therefore Torah says recheves. Now we're going to bring different stories. Just as the Amit's bringing different stories, how we see you have to speak in a clean and positive term. There were two Talmidim who were sitting in front of Rav. One of the Talmidim was saying they were learning whatever they were learning. And Rav was teaching them. And one of them said, this is such a hard piece of Gemara that it made us like a tired pig. This sugi tired us out like a tired goat. And from then on, Rav never taught these two Talmud. Rav never spoke to the first Talmud. Why? Because if you want to say that many want to say that the sugya made you work hard, fine. Why have to use a Talmudic animal, a non-clean animal, to bring it as an example? So for then, Rav stopped talking to him. So we see how important it is to speak in a clean term. Even in Hebrew, that's why in Lashon HaKodesh, a lot of times we see the Lashon of instead of saying Achazi, we say Davar Acher, because we don't want to speak in a not clean, speak about not clean things. Another story the Gemara brings out to bring out this point. There were two Talmidim sitting in front of Hillel. One of the Talmidim was the Rebbe Mezaka was the Talmud of Hillel. Hillel was one of the first Tanoim. And some people say that the story didn't happen with Hillel, the story happened with Rebbe. Therefore, we can't say that the Talmud of Rebbe was the Rebbe Mezaka because the Rebbe Mezaka lived before Rebbe. So you have to say that the Talmud in that story was the Rebbe. Okay, so what happened in the story? One of the students said, yeah, okay, we're not going to go into the din barichis, but the general concept is that tuma, if you have an apple, for example, tuma, an apple can only attract tuma if it has liquid, has one of the 7 liquids, which are machshir, it's called machshir fruit to become tummy, and one of them is wine, one of them is water. So in order for a fruit to become tummy, then it has to have liquid. So the thing was, when you in those days, when you squeeze grapes, they will make sure the vessels that they squeeze the grapes with were always tied to vessels. Why? Because if you're going to squeeze the grapes, and the grapes are going to become, as soon as a bit of juice, grape juice comes out of the grapes, it's going to make the grapes wet. And if you're using a Talmudic vessel to squeeze the grapes, you're going to make all the wine tummy straight away. So therefore, they made a din that you have to squeeze your grapes with taridika kin. So this student was asking him, why do we squeeze grapes with taridika kin? They meiskin betara, but we don't squeeze olives with taridika kin. Why only grapes? Olives have the same din. If you squeeze olives and make olive oil, so I should have the same thing. You should squeeze it with taridika kin. So as you notice, he asked, why do we squeeze grapes with taridika kin, and we squeeze olives with taridika kin? We didn't say taridika kin. We said, why over here we use taridika kin, and over there we don't use taridika kin? That was one student. Another student asked the same question, just with a different lashon. Why do we squeeze grapes with taridika kin? And when it comes to squeezing olives, we use taridika kin. So we see here he used the lashon tum. He asked the same question, but just in a talmudic way. Amar, Rabbi said, Muftach ani bazeh. I am sure that the first time we used a clean term, Rabbi saw that he's going to be a he's going to be a big teacher in Yisrael. So it happened it wasn't so long that eventually he became a Rav or something, and the bracha of Rabbi wasn't sky. From here we see how important it is to use, even if there's nothing wrong with saying Talmud, but if you can say Torah, why should you say Talmud? And especially when we see how the Rebbe spoke the whole time, that the Rebbe's whole way of speaking was a positive terminology. Right? The Rebbe said instead of calling a hospital a bet in Hebrew, you say bet cholim. So the Rebbe said change the name to bet refuah. A lot of things never change, and they're always very accurate in speaking in a positive term. And this is Mushish in the Gemara. Another story. There were 3 kahanim who each divided. They got their portion of the lechem upon. One of the kahanim said, "Higyani kfel. My portion is the size of a pearl. Pearl is a small size. Less than a kazais. It's a size in Torah. Chad Amar Higyani kazais. Another kind said my size was the size of kazais. Chad Amar Higyani chelek Higyani kiznav halto. I got my portion was the size of the tail of a rodent. So they checked into this kind who says that the size of his nachma panim is the size of a rodent. So they found out that he came from a chol. So the Gemara brings a story to illustrate how the one who had a dirty tongue, we said my nachma panim is he compared it to a talmudic rodent. They checked after him. They found out that he was something wrong with his yichus. He was like a pasul for corner. Said the Gemara, what does it mean someone's pasul for corner? But now I'm relying on the Mishnah ain't came on the if someone's father was served on the mizbeach, so he has a cheskas Torah. So meaning, if why was his father? What he found out that he was pasul, it doesn't happen. If his father served, if he served, his father served, his father served, his father served. Basically, there's no way of a kohen it's very hard for a kohen to be serving as a mikdash and be possible. So saying, I mean, it doesn't say that he was possible. How many it was that we thought that he was possible came from a possible house. The Gemara said, doesn't mean he came from a possible house. It means that he was a very coarse and bad person who didn't care so much about kachim. They looked into his Haggis, into his history, and they saw they didn't treat kachim nicely, and that's why he spoke in such a way, because he didn't have a respect for kabbanis and things like that. And the din is that a kohen that doesn't have respect for kabbanis is not allowed to serve in Beis Mikdash. So that's what it means. It doesn't mean he came from a pasuk house. It means that they found he was a pasuk. He didn't respect kachim, and that's also why he compared his lachman panim to the size of the tail. But the last answer is shani hasam the ara nafshay. He ruined himself. What does it mean? But over here, since he made problems, so therefore they said maybe the stock is something wrong with him. They looked in and they found, and they did a deeper search, and more of a deeper search, and they found he was stuck a pasuk. So that which his father served him was beach, and that which he served him was beach, because his father was kosher. It's because they didn't do such a thorough search. But then they checked into it and saw there was a problem, so they did more of a thorough search. The next piece of Gemara is now we're speaking about Yichus. So Gemara is a very famous story of Arma that was someone from Rabbi. From Aram, he have a solid va'achab Pesachim Yerushalayim. He was going every single year and he kabbanis in Yerushalayim. Amar, once upon a time, he said, he came to Yehuda Masechta, and he told Yehuda Masechta, and he says, "Ksiv, does it say in your Torah, it says in your Torah that any guy you can't eat, a guy can't eat korban Pesach." And another pasuk is Ksiv, kol anyone who's not circumcised can't eat korban Pesach. Hakabuna shufi the shufra. I go every single year to Yerushalayim, and I get the best parts of the kabbanis. So I'm going to Yehuda told him, "Me kasafal ma'alya. Did they ever give you the tail? Go ask next time you go." Amalei. He said, "No, the tail they never gave me." Kikasaka lasam, when he went there, so Yehuda told him, "Kikasaka lasam, when you go next time you go, amalos full ma'alya. Go ask them. I want some of the tail." Kisalik. So this Arami went next year to eat korban Pesach in Yerushalayim. Amalahu me'alis fully. Give me some tail. Amalahu. They screamed at him. You're asking for tail. How dare you ask for the tail? The tail is brought on the mizbech. It goes to Hashem. Amarlei. Man amalachachi. Who told you to ask us for the tail? Amalahu. Yehuda Masechta asked me to use the tail. So Amalahu. My have a come on. My have the come on. But why would Yehuda Masechta every time to ask him the tail? Obviously, Yehuda Masechta was such a big Tana. It was such a big. He knew that you can't ask for the tail. They found that they looked into his yichus, and they found that he was Taka Aram, and he tricked them the whole time. And they killed him. There's a whole bunch of mafarshim why he was Taka Chai Misa, and why they were able to kill him. They sent a letter to Yehuda Masechta, and they told him, "Shalom lach Yehuda Masechta, da'at bin tzivin." You're sitting in Tzivin, and your nets. I mean, you have a control over what happens in Yerushalayim. There's a whole bunch of the question is why Yehuda Masechta himself didn't go and be makiv korban Pesach every single year. He himself had to go to Yerushalayim. Why did you tell him next time you go to ask him? The question said he was sick, or he was old, or he didn't. Other Mepharshim say he didn't live inside the boundaries of in those days it wasn't part of Eretz Yisrael, so therefore he didn't have to go. So therefore, it's part of korban Pesach. One more story the Gemara brings to bring out how when a person speaks, he has to speak in a positive way, in a clean way. If Kana got sick, Shadur Rabban Bishua, the aid of Idi, Rabban sent Bishua, the son of Rabbi, to go visit Kana and see how he's doing. They told him, go see what's happening with him. Go see what's his matter. Also, he came to Kana. He found out that Kahana was nifted. So now, Kari Levush, he took Kriya, obviously, since it was his Rebbe, so he had to take Kriya. But when he took Kriya, he tore it in a way that he that people shouldn't see that it was that people shouldn't see that he talked here, because he didn't want to be the bearer of bad news. He didn't want to tell everyone that the Kana was nifter. So he wanted to make sure that they don't get a shock and they don't see that he talked here. And he was crying. When he came back to him, telling them how Kana was doing, he was crying. He told Amalei, they told him, Kana was nifter. I never said Kana was nifter. I'm not going to tell you anything. Because it says in Pasuk, one who brings out the bad news is a fool. He's bringing out, he's spreading bad news, and he's a fool. So even though the bad news happened, he didn't want to bring out the bad news. He didn't want to be the bearer of bad news. Yechanan Chakuka, one more story. Yechanan Chakuka, Nofak Lekaryasa. Yechanan Chakuka, that was his name. He went he went to the village to see how his produce is doing. He also, when he came back to his town, Amalei Chitim Nasi office, that he had good wheat. So he answered them, Amalehem Seir Nasi office. I had good barley, which is mashma, that basically he didn't want to say that he had bad wheat. We just said now that we don't speak in a bad way. So he told them the barley was very good. So they told Amalei, say Obase Lasusim Lachamerim. Go take your barley and give it to the horses and donkeys. Barley, destroy the hay and the barley, you give to the donkeys. So what are you telling us about your barley? We don't care about your barley. Says the Gemara, I have a lemon. What should I have said? We just said the whole daf of Gemara. You have to speak in a nice way. So what, you say my wheat is bad? So the Gemara said, what do you mean? There's different ways of expressing. You could have said last year I had better wheat. Inami Adashim Nasi office, or you could say that the lentils were good. The lentils at least are good for man. But over here, he's saying the barley was good. Why is he bringing in barley? So they told him, give the barley to the behemoths. Even when you speak in a positive way, you have to. It's not only speaking in a positive way; you have to speak in a useful way also. So therefore, he when he said his barley is good, it wasn't the get to them. So they told him to give it to the animals. We're stopping over here. They've given on the base at the bottom. We're going to start tomorrow. They've down on the Aleph.